and welcome back to the DevOps with this channel. I am Prashant Gohil, and today we are going to solve a Terraform task, which is a create key pair using Terraform on the Code Cloud platform. Right. So first of all, before starting anything, I would like to brief you about Terraform. So until now, if you wanted to create something on AWS, you probably just opened the console, clicked the multiple buttons, selected options, and finally created a resource. But imagine if instead of doing that all that manually, you could just write a simple file, run one command, and your infrastructure gets created automatically. Exactly the same every time. And today, in this video, we are taking that first real step into the real world using Terraform, right? So this is Terraform level 1, right? And this is actually a shift in how infrastructure is created, right? Because instead of manually interacting with the cloud services, we start defining everything in code, and this concept is called the infrastructure as code, or you can share, it is known as ISA in short form. This simply means describing your infrastructure in a file so that it can be created, managed, and reproduced using code instead of manual steps. Today's task is simple on the surface level. We are going to create an AWS EC2 key pair. But the real goal is not just to create the key pair. The real goal is to understand how the Terraform works internally, how it reads our code, and how it decides what to create and how it connects different pieces together. Right? So here we have to create an key pair known as Xfusion KP. Right? So now before writing any code, first understand what we are trying to achieve in real terms. Right? Because Terraform is not just about commands, it is about describing the desired state, right? So the desired state here is that we want to create a key pair named Xfusion to exist in AWS. We want it to use RS encryption, and at the same time, we also want the private key file to be saved on our local machine at a specific location in the Bob's home directory, right? So now, instead of manually generating keys and uploading them, Terraform will handle everything from generation to the storage and file creation all through the code. So inside the Bob's home directory, there is a folder named Terraform. There we have to create a one file called main.tf. Here the tf is the extension which specifies that this file is particularly Terraform file, right? It contains the Terraform code basically. So now we have created the main.tf file. So now let's start writing the code and understand everything step by step in a natural way, right? So first of all, we need to specify the provider. Now here, the provider means a plugin that allows Terraform to communicate with a specific platform. In this case, AWS. In this case, here it is AWS because Terraform itself does not know how to create an AWS resources. It relies on providers to create resources, right? Which are the backend interfaces of the services. So this blog is telling Terraform that we are going to create that we are going to work with the AWS and all AWS related resources should be created in the US is one region, right? So now that we generate a private key locally, right? So now here comes a very important concept, which is resource. A resource in Terraform represents something that Terraform will create or manage. And every resource that has two parts, the type and the name, right? Here, the TLS private key is the type, which comes from the TLS provider. And Nautilus RSA is just a name we give inside Terraform. So we can refer to it later. Now algorithm that we want to use here it is RSA, right? which is encryption, which is widely used for public private key algorithm. And RSA bits 4096 means the key size, and the larger the key size means the stronger the security. Now, once this resource is created, Terraform will generate both private key and the public keys internally. Okay. So now next we create the actual key pair in the AWS, right? So now this is where the Terraform becomes really powerful. Here we are creating an AWS resource named AWS Key Pair, and its resource name will be the Nautilus Key Pair. And here we have to specify the Xfusion KP, the name of the key, right? So key name is the name that will appear inside the AWS, but the most important part is public key, right? Instead of manually giving a key, we are referencing another resource. This one. We are referencing another resource, which is TLS private key, then Nautilus RSA, and then Nautilus, Nautilus RSA, and then public key OpenSSH, and then public key OpenSSH. So now, what this means is that we are taking the public key generated in the previous step, then, and we are passing it here. And Terraform understands this dependency automatically. So it knows that it must first create the private key resource, extract the public key part, and then use it to create the AWS key pair. So this is called the dependency management, and Terraform handles it without us writing any order or sequence. Now, next we save the private key locally, right? Here in the Bob's home directory. Okay, so its name must be Xfusion KP. Xfusion KP. So now here we are using another provider called the local, right? And which allows Terraform to interact with the local file system. Here the content, the content is the actual private key we generated earlier. File name is where we want to store it, and the file permission is 0400, means only the owner can read this file, which is required for the SSL security. Otherwise, SSL will reject the key. Now, if you observe carefully, this entire script is not telling Terraform how to do things step by step. It is only describing what we want, and Terraform figures out how to achieve that. This is the core idea of declarative configuration, right? Now, after writing the code, we move to the execution part. So the first command to execute is Terraform init. Now, okay, here we are not required to specify the provider part because it is already mentioned in this provider.tf file. That's why this error occurred, right? We run again this Terraform init command. So now basically this step prepares the directory by downloading all the required providers like AWS, TLS, and local, because Terraform needs these plugins to understand how to create resources, right? Next, next is the Terraform plan. Uh, okay. So this is basically a dry run, which means Terraform compares your desired state and with the current state and shows what changes it will make, right? So this is very important because you always know that what will happen before applying changes. Then finally, Terraform apply command is executed. So this is the actual execution step. Terraform creates the resources by calling the AWS APIs, generating keys, and writing files locally. It will ask for the confirmation, and once you type yes, everything gets created, right? Okay, so as you can see the output, the three things that were added. Here you can also ls will be stored in home directory of both. Okay, so xfusion.kp.pem file is available here, right? Also, you can check the permissions of this xfusion file, right? It is read only for the owner. So, and if the file is present, that means Terraform successfully generated the key and saved it, right? So now the most important part is understanding why this approach matters. First, let's just check this task, right? So now the most important part is that why this approach matters even. So instead of manually creating resources, now everything is written in code. This means that you can store this code in a Git, you can track the changes, means version control it, then share with the team and recreate the same setup anytime. If tomorrow you want the same infrastructure in another environment, you don't repeat the steps. You just run the same code again. This removes inconsistency, reduces the human errors, and makes the infrastructure predictable. And this is exactly how the real DevOps team should work. So this was all about the day one, means first step into the Terraform infrastructure as code. And even though the task was small, the concept behind it was very powerful and helpful because now you are not just creating the resources, you are defining the infrastructure and code. From here onwards, we will move towards more complex setups where multiple resources are connected together and managed automatically. Also, if you want all the hands-on solutions, including the Terraform, Code Cloud solutions, and real DevOps task and all, you can visit my repository named Code Cloud Solutions. Right here, you will find all the solutions which will be helpful for you. Right. Also, uh, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, where I share the learning progress and DevOps insights regularly. If this video helped you to understand the Terraform clearly from the basics, then do like this video. Also, subscribe to this video, subscribe to my DevOps channel, and yeah, I will see you in the next video where we'll go deeper into the real infrastructure and automation. Thank you for watching.